I am reading the features of your zodiac sign. But I will not say which zodiac sign you are. You guessed it. You are very proud, confident, brave and well-intentioned. Honesty is paramount to you. The moment you realize that the other person is lying, you get cold and away from him. You are generous. But it is just as wasteful. That's why it's very difficult for you to save money. You are very fond of your loved ones and there is nothing you cannot do for your loved ones. Well, that's enough. Which sign is this? Anyways, I will not extend it. These are not attributes of any particular sign. I made it up. But for some of you, you may have said that this is what I am. It's not your fault either. We live this in different ways, without exception. Sometimes it can be a zodiac sign. Sometimes fortunes. But I said, you are not to blame. The culprit is a kind of psychological phenomenon called the Barnum Effect. And understanding this effect can drastically change your life. Let's try to understand. When we look at the signs specifically, there is a phenomenon that can direct all their lives and decisions for a certain segment, although of course not everyone who follows the signs can direct their lives accordingly. So many people believe that the date of birth, the arrangement of planets or stars on certain days in certain ways determines whether they are promoted at work or whether the person they encounter is the right person. However, we have to say that these people are under the Barnum effect when we wear the scientific glasses. If we take it from the beginning, almost 8 billion people currently live in the world. Of course, it will not give an exact number, but when we divide this number by the number of existing signs, that is, 12, we have to think that your daily horoscope fits approximately 650 million different people. Moreover, when we consider the age at which you read these horoscope interpretations, we come across an overgeneralization that cannot be taken out. But sometimes it suits us so much, it tells us so much. How does this happen? Firstly, the most important reason is that we are human. And every moment of human life needs an explanation. This has nothing to do with horoscopes or fortunes. We need an explanation, an external voice to confirm us. We search for it all the time. That's where the Barnum effect comes in. In its simplest form, we can explain it as believing that general definitions such as horoscope traits are written especially for the person. In fact, these definitions cover hundreds of millions of people as we have mentioned. The story of his name is also interesting. A showman named P.T. Barnum comes from a master of circus and illusion. He was making shows that left everyone's mouth open in his shows and he was able to attract the attention of people from all walks of life. This effect is named after him, especially because he uses a discourse like, "We have a show suitable for everyone, in every show." The first study of this effect in the psychology scene was the work of psychologist Ross Stagner in 1947. He conducts a written test for employees from different companies. After these people present their answers, Stagner says that he has come up with a personality definition that describes each of them, and he gives these definitions to them. But he only wrote one description and distributed the same to everyone. More than half of the participants expressed these definitions as very true, he is exactly telling me. And almost no one answered completely wrong. In another study, psychologist Bertram Forer studied this effect, and this effect was also called the Forer effect because his study was very popular. Forer similarly conducted a written test in 1948, this time with a group of 39 psychology students. He says that this test will reveal a unique personality definition for them. Results are delivered to each student a week later. Of course, all students think these definitions are specific to them. But Forer actually sent all students this same statement: you want people to love you and admire you. Sometimes you are a self-critical person. There is a huge potential in you that you have not yet been able to use. Although you have some weaknesses, you know very well how to compensate for these weaknesses with your strengths. Although you may seem disciplined and strong on the outside, you have worries inside that you do not show anyone. Sometimes you have very serious doubts about whether he is making the right decision or whether he is doing the right thing. You want change in your life, and when obstacles arise, you become very unhappy. You are a very independent thinker, and without enough evidence it is very difficult to accept other people's opinions. You think that there should be a limit when explaining yourself to others, and that you should not be too open to others in every sense. Sometimes you can be very extroverted, but sometimes you believe that being introverted is helpful. Some of your dreams are seemingly extreme and impossible dreams. On the other hand, one of the biggest goals in life is to feel safe in every sense. Now, students who read these explanations are also asked to make an assessment of how well they fit them. The results of the students who evaluate between 1 and 5 are very striking. The average score of the students who said that this explanation fit them was 4.3. They thought at a very high rate that it fits me completely, it tells me, although it is not written to them. Another effect that emerged in this work was Pollyannism. The more positive the definitions, the higher the rate of fit. Negative definitions were generally accepted at a lower rate. So the real question is why? Why are we experiencing this effect, the Barnum Effect? As I've said many times before, the brain is a great machine for seeing connections and making connections. In your daily life, your brain unwittingly connects many events, people, and draws a conclusion. For this reason, when you encounter an expression that says that it appeals to you according to your date of birth and your time, your brain tries to find connections by examining this definition word by word, comparing it with your daily life, and it is very good in this regard. You find the parts that suit you, accept them, and ignore the ones that do not, completely ignoring them. Again, you try to support your own beliefs and thoughts because of the verification error we talked about before. It may also be the question of satisfying your ego here, or you may be looking for a strange but harmful reason to your self-esteem. Or the reasons to make yourself a victim and justify you. This, in other words, this decision-making process is affected by 3 factors. The first of these factors is how much the definition is personalized. So the more personalized the definition that claims to be telling you, the more likely you are to believe it. For example, if you target only women or men, you get incomplete. Then when you divide it into 12 signs, you become even more personal. For example, if there were 3 zodiac signs, this subject would not have been talked about that much. In a situation that claims to be unique to you, like fortune-telling, your brain becomes ready to believe and find connections. The second factor is the authority level. The higher the person who claims to give you information about you, the higher your inclination to believe. And of course, it is very important how negative and how positive these character traits are. We tend to be more inclined to accept abundant positive definitions with token negatives. How much your ego is caressed is a very important factor here. In the meantime, we always gave examples of horoscopes and fortune-telling, but of course, this subject is in our lives in a much wider context. All the facts that claim to see your future and read your past, such as astrology, tarot cards, or the like, are of course the most common examples. If you pay attention to those who claim to be experts on these, they make constant predictions, and these predictions are as accurate as they are full of false predictions. But as I mentioned, when we look back, we remember the truth and say, wow, the fortune teller said this would happen. However, the personality tests we encounter on Facebook or sites like Onadio are a very good example. Which celebrity do you look like? Which drink reflects you? The more the results of the style tests seem to suit you, the more likely you are to share them on your wall. There are also personality tests that are highly discussed in psychology and are still used by companies. Although there are tests such as Myers-Briggs that have been well analyzed and studied, ultimately the reliability of these tests is highly controversial in this respect. Among other examples, we can give suggestions for movies or songs, for example. In fact, we can say that the suggestions based on technical analysis are unique to you, creating the illusion that the company knows you. Just like in commercials. So Google and similar large companies can actually be called highly advanced astrologers. Perhaps more successful. It is an indisputable fact that they know you much better. Well, finally, how do we deal with this? Actually, it's not that difficult. We are talking about an effect that will spontaneously become very weak when you develop certain skills. First of all, it is necessary to be suspicious of information that claims to be relevant to you from a source you do not know. We can also generalize this as a dose of skepticism towards everything we see and hear. So you have to admit that you are not a superficial person to fit into a paragraph, that a random person or third-rate sites will not be able to recognize you. Secondly, it is up to you to read and believe this information, but try not to make very important decisions based on this information and Facebook tests. If he says you are a traveler on the test, don't quit your paid job and hit the road without any savings. If you will, do it by evaluating your own conditions and planning well. And of course, remember that no one better than you can know you, especially no one can predict your future. No matter how much we talk, we all fall victim to the Barnum Effect from time to time. There is no problem with that either. Horoscopes tests can sometimes make us happy and motivate us. It is never a problem to read, speak and share. However, if you think that Jupiter, Saturn, Mars or the whole universe organized the movements for you on the cosmic scale, or that this order directly affects you, and on top of that, if you shape your whole life accordingly and make irreversible decisions, it is useful to think again. Although astrology was much more popular when cosmology was not that advanced, we see that its popularity is decreasing as science develops and makes sense of the universe. Of course, tomorrow, if science proves that the arrangement of the planets affects our fight with our lover, then we'll talk again.